Okay. Uh-oh. Let me turn this off.
I know my stuff's off too. All the vibrating technology.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.
Welcome to the Remnant Podcast by Reclaim 611. I'm Paula.
And I'm Carrie.
And we have a very special guest with us today. I'll read her bio and then she'll tell us more about herself. Today we have Mrs. Tomi Grover, PhD. She serves the Office of the Governor, Child Sex Trafficking Team as the North Texas Regional Administrator. She has 48 counties, including the greater DFW Metroplex, extending to the Red River and Louisiana borders. She has been working on education, advocacy, and engagement for anti-human trafficking efforts since 2006. She holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Social Work and Ministry-Based Evangelism, a Master of Arts in Christian Education from Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, and a Bachelor of Liberal Arts in Science and Criminal Justice from the University of Florida. Welcome, Tomi.
I gotta say, go Gators. You get that University of Florida in there, and I'm like, go Gators.
All right.
It's football season. You know, you gotta root for your home team there.
Right, right.
You know, I've known Tomi for a little while, and every time I get to hear her bio, I'm always like amazed every time. It's just she's an amazing bio and is an amazing person, and we're so honored that she's here today.
Yes, thank you for taking out time to be with us on this podcast today.
You bet.
All right, so Tomi, tell us a little bit about yourself that's not on the bio.
Not on the bio. Been married 37 years this month to a law enforcement officer who just retired after 40 years of serving the community. I have 2 children who are too old for me to mention, but they are about to turn 34, and a son who'll be 30 in March, and I can't believe how old they're getting. I don't know how that happens because I'm not getting any older. And yeah, we have enjoyed living in Texas for the last umpteen years. We moved here in 1995, never expecting to stay, and really feel blessed by God to be able to be in this place for such a time as this.
Yes, ma'am. So can you tell me how you and Carrie connected? Or Carrie, do you want to start the story off?
I was telling Paula that I think it was through our co-founders, Candace and Carrie, had met you through a contact, and then I just kind of got looped in. And then I was telling Paula, like, everywhere you are in the Metroplex that has to do with anti-human trafficking, there is Tomi. So if you are in any coalition or in any group in the Metroplex, like, Tomi is there. She is an absolute advocate and always faithful to be there.
Yeah, and I came across the Reclaim 611 folks and had an opportunity to really hear what they're doing. Very excited about that. I've been a part of this teaching and training community since about 2006 and started doing education in 2007. And I'm always looking for good resources and people who are committed to developing the best possible products. And I've been a part of the Heal Trafficking group since it was just a Google listserv many years ago. And Heal Trafficking has just blown up across the country with professionals and holistic response, the psychosocial, the medical field, and across all the disciplines for the various education pieces. And Reclaim fits a piece of a really practical response, which really gravitated to the work that I have with the Office of the Governor, because we wanted to make sure that there was a reason for people to engage that was more compassionate than it had been in the medical field. And Reclaim just brought a whole lot of assets to the table. So yeah, I was pretty enamored with them, a fan, if you will.
Yes, when you say compassionate, I'm sure Carrie's picture should pop up because she is the epitome of someone who has so much compassion. So,
and how you get so much compassion in such a little tiny package, I don't know.
Exactly.
Y'all are too kind, really.
So, Miss Tommy, what drew you to sex trafficking? How did you know you were called to that particular mission and human trafficking?
So, while I come representing the governor's office, I'm going to take that hat off to answer this question
Okay.
because um, it doesn't represent the governor, my journey. This is just my journey, and so just make it real clear for listeners. This is about me and not about the governor's response and that kind of stuff. And
Okay.
so. I was actually working at the time for Texas Baptist, and they had a resolution for their denomination condemning human trafficking. And it became a part of my work because I was leading the work in community and restorative justice for the denomination at that point. And it became a part of my work. And I started teaching and training and educating myself and others and began that engagement across the denomination, which is about 5,000 churches in the state. So 2007, 2008, and 2009, I began an educational campaign specifically for this called Traffic Stop. And it was not an organization, it was just an educational campaign. And in early spring of 2010, they asked me to be a thought leader in another area and said in the same sentence with no breath, what if that doesn't include human trafficking? And I was kind of surprised by that because I had spent the last 3 years doing education on this and training and all of that kind of stuff. And we were having quite a bit of traction, if you will. And I didn't even ask them, what else could you have me do? Because I call it my glorious ruination. I really felt gloriously ruined to this as my God call. I cannot not do this. So I said, well, if you can't let me do trafficking, I got to go. And so they kept me on a really small retainer in order to be able to help their denomination continue that work. And every year it was a year-to-year contract. And after 5 years, they said, okay, I think we're finally done. But I had been teaching and training that entire time. And so when it came to the work that I've been doing, I'd already been connecting with a lot of folks all across the Metroplex and across the state of Texas and working in this space in a variety of capacities, educating, engaging, and really actively helping people to see that this was a public health issue and that we should respond through prevention, intervention, education, and restoration as a comprehensive, holistic response. Well, that was pretty much what I found out the governor's office was doing when I looked at the team that was formed in 2015, and I was like, awesome. Can't wait to see what they do, having no idea ever that I would have an opportunity to serve that team. And that's kind of been the journey.
Okay.
Wow. Your faithfulness to the call is one to be commended. You know, I think it's so awesome. And you never know. It's like that dream team you thought you'd never be a part of, and now you're part of it.
Yep. And I've asked God, how did I get here? One day when I was driving up the Capitol, looking in the distance up Congress Avenue, and he said, just one little act of obedience at a time.
Nice.
So awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the governor's office. All right.
I'll put that hat back on.
Put that hat back on. Yes, ma'am. So what is the main mission of the sex trafficking team of the governor's office?
So we were implemented by the legislature in 2015 in the government code. So we sit in the Criminal Justice Division, Public Safety Office, and our team is housed within the Public Safety Office. And it was by legislative government code. So it really doesn't matter who sits in the governor's seat. It should continue. And it was a bipartisan, legislative action that made this happen. So I haven't found yet any legislator who doesn't want to be seen as tough on trafficking. And so we bring the strength of the legislature and their decision to make this happen as a part of it. So that being said, we're written into the government code as a response that is holistic and comprehensive. And it has 6 key pieces. And 5 of those are public facing, and the 6th one's like the glue that holds them all together, okay? And we have a whole icon that looks like a circle with a star in the middle. Of course, we're a Lone Star state. We had to have a star in the middle of our icon. So it has those 5 public facing pieces, which are prevention. We call that protect. We have to have some pieces in place in order to protect our children from being groomed, being trafficked, all of those pieces on protection. So we work with a lot of different agencies, entity, including the Texas Education Agency for educating children and staff and faculty and that kind of stuff. And then the second piece is recognize. You can't see what you can't see until you know what to look for, right? So we have been doing a lot of training using the commercial sexual exploitation identification tool and helping people to know what to look for in 8 primary key areas of a child's life to recognize whether they may be already being exploited or if they're high risk of being exploited. Then the third piece is the recover, because once you recognize that child, then you have to have options to help recover that child. And in that recovery piece is a really rich community response involving the Children's Advocacy Center, CSA Advocates, and CSA Advocates stands for Commercially Sexually Exploited Youth Advocates, and it's a new ad that we've brought that is a specific and intentional relationship for these children because their needs are so high, and then working through the local community to see what other assets there are in the recovery process. And then the next step is long-term restorative healing to bring thriving to that child's life for their physical, emotional, spiritual, relational, financial health, to get all of those pieces as wraparound services for the healing of that child. And then the 5th component is the bringing justice. And that means aligning the systems, whether it's the district attorney's office, the court systems, the law enforcement community, plus all the other social services and agencies that serve our children in the state, making sure that we're all on the same page about serving these kiddos. And they're all held together, as I said, by the 6th component, which is research and evidence-based. So we're working with universities, we're working with those that are doing research, and we're making sure that we have best and promising practices to hold it all together and have a really robust model as a response.
That's just a small piece right now. That's a lot of things. That is a very, very well-rounded, I mean, you guys hit every mark, really. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that, Tomi?
All at the same time. And all at once, we're working in all 6 of those areas. Wow. We have 5 regional administrators, and I serve the North Texas area, as you talked about at the beginning, and we have 4 others who are like my work, but in other areas of the state. And that was the state, 254 counties, was divided by population density. So my West Texas colleague has 90 plus counties, while I only have 48, but it's based on the population of that region. So there's geographical diversity among our team, and we each are trying to affect those specific pieces, those 5 pieces that are public facing on an ongoing basis. So we work with a lot of partners. We work with law enforcement, the Children's Advocacy Centers, Department of Family and Protective Services, Texas Juvenile Justice Division, anyone who has touches on these children's lives, Texas Education Agency I mentioned earlier. But there are many, many other youth serving organizations that we partner with to try and affect locally those entities that can serve these kiddos once they're recognized and recovered, and just build from there this whole continuum of care for our kiddos. It's an amazing endeavor, and we could never do this without the partners on the ground, like Reclaim 611, who's out there doing education for specifically the medical community. We know that they play a pivotal role in recognizing and helping to recover these kiddos and to provide services for them in that medical community. So it's important to leverage those for us and see how we all can work together.
Yeah, it's 100% teamwork to fight this evil, and I feel like that's we talk to listeners every time, is just to remind that this isn't a 1-person job or a 2-person job, but everybody has a place in how they can fight trafficking and stand up and get involved. And like you said, it's a huge community effort. So yeah, you guys hit all the marks, and it's so exciting to see all the initiatives rolling out. I know you've been working in this space since, 2006-ish. What have you seen? What kind of progress have you seen since you've been rolling out these initiatives? Do you have any good stories for us or some examples of progress? And
Yeah, I would say that there has been a real groundswell in North Texas of agencies and entities that have taken on the challenge of doing education, as well as finding the right mix for their organization to do what they do best without getting in the way of other organizations, collaborating where necessary, and communicating on a regular basis with each other about how they can help to foster a holistic kind of approach for these kiddos, because these kiddos are in various stages of change. When it comes to, once they are recognized, they may not be ready to come out of the life, and they may be so trauma bonded that we have a lot more work to do to help them to see that there's something other than the life that they could live, and real life is out there, but not controlled by somebody else. And so I think it's getting everybody, it's like this. If you're a conductor of an orchestra, you've got the master score in front of you, and everybody has their parts that they play, but everybody has to start in the upper left-hand corner of that sheet of music in order for it to fit together, right? And so a lot of the time, I think it's people jump in and they don't get to the place where they're following the lead of the main orchestra leader. They're just trying to do whatever they want. It sounds a little avant-garde in some respects, in that they're out there playing their tune, but they're not in concert with everybody else. And so it's been really amazing to see everyone trying to get on the same sheet of music. We'll do our part, you do your part. Let's see how that blends together, where we have harmony, and how it all starts to sound and resound with a singular focus of heading down the road together. I don't know if that answers your question or if it's a little too ethereal, but I see a lot of engagement where people are actually collaborative, much more than it was historically.
no, I think that definitely answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. So, can you tell us, before we go to your campaign, can you tell us what are some signs of child exploitation, child sexual exploitation?
So remember, we talked about the see it as the recognize piece. That's the commercially sexually exploited identification tool. And there are 8 key areas that are a part of understanding a child who may be at risk or who may already be exploited. And that includes things that has to do with their housing situation and their care, control, and custody. So if a child is been served by the Department of Family and Protective Services in their lifetime, if they've been placed in foster care, or if they have some issues historically with domestic violence in their home or law enforcement, or they have a family history of engagement in the sex industry for whatever reason, that could be one of the historical factors that come forward with a child's life. We find that there are a lot of adversity for children who are commercially sexually exploited that may be under the tree, the root system, that includes a lot of economic disparity or poverty issues, and yet those aren't the totality of what adversity a child may face in the online space, for instance. The access of other individuals to their life that they never would have had in the past, but in the online space, they're now accessible and they have access to the world as well. So while we look at what might be presenting issues, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whether they have tattoos, whether they have access to those things and they don't seem to have a job, but they have access to those kinds of things, those are other flags to consider. If they have scars, marks, and tattoos that are in keeping with what would be branding or marking their bodies, that they're the property of someone else. But there's no one single outward indicator that says, oh, this child's being trafficked. It's a convergence of circumstances and history that once you start to look at it through that matrix of the identification tool, you go, I would never have thought about a truancy issue, or I would never have thought about this issue. But when you start to look at them as a whole, you can really see the pieces fall into place. There are a number of resources on our website that give red flags. If you go to gov.texas.gov/CSTT, that's our team's website. And there's a whole list of things there that can help to prompt some things about that. And if you want the commercial sexual exploitation identification tool information, it's all there as well.
And we'll post those links on our website as well, so everyone can click on those. And
awesome.
All right. So now you have this wonderful sign in the background, and I think it's a billboard for an ad campaign, and it's called "Can You See Me?" So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The Office of the First Lady, our governor's wife, Cecilia Abbott, worked with A21, which is an international group. A21 has this campaign that they started. We also partnered with the U.S. Department of Transportation, our own Texas Department of Transportation, and the First Lady's office has helped the campaign to get off the ground. Last year, we had worked with the outdoor advertising agencies, and they dedicated a number of billboards across the state in about 70 different markets. They have both digital campaigns as well as the billboards that are static. And this little mock-up is of one of the ads. They actually did 10 different ads, and they have different specifics that they're looking at, whether it's labor trafficking, sex trafficking, domestic servitude, and they have a variety of pictures that are in both in all of those settings, and then they have the language of either English or Spanish. So these campaigns have gone all across the state. We've done press conferences in a variety of cities pre-COVID that helped to kick that campaign off, and they've continued through the year to put those billboards up across all of those markets in the state.
This is a really exciting collaboration. I remember when I first just kind of started doing research into human trafficking. A21 was one of the first organizations I came across as like an international organization, and just so neat to see that this is like this collaboration with the governor's office and to see where it goes. And I will have to say that Reclaim 611, we use some of their videos in some of our trainings, and we give them as resources. They do provide on their website some really great like 3-minute videos of examples of child sex trafficking, and labor trafficking as well. So you can go on their website and check those out. They're really good snippets of just interpretation of trafficking in general. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, and they've also been working with the Dallas Independent School District and have a very robust evidence-based curriculum that's available. And I'm just excited to see the holistic response that Dallas ISD has taken. We've been working with their team from the STEM group, and A21's right front and center. They have a curriculum writer, and they have been really doing some great work.
That's really exciting.
So have you gotten any, traffic or response from the campaign?
We have partnered with the National Human Trafficking Hotline. Okay. And so all those calls that come in, and of course, that is an indicator of signals that come from our state, and they compile all of that data. So I don't know that they've kept one specific number that has to do with the campaign itself.
Gotcha.
But I can tell you that based on the number of calls, we have more calls going to the National Human Trafficking Hotline than 48 other states. California gets the #1 position. I don't know if you really want to be #1, but in the number of calls. But I could tell you that our state, because it's getting educated, because there is a lot going on to help people to understand this issue, we have a lot of people who are notifying the human trafficking hotline of cases. They're also getting information from there. And it's also a place where survivors can get help and assistance if they need it. And we've been able to work with them very intentionally so that we have all of the information up to date at the National Human Trafficking Hotline on what services are available. They have 2 directories, an internal directory and an external directory. So we've been trying to make sure that all the service providers that we've been working with are on that directory in case someone does call, that they can get access to those services. Plus, we've made sure that the law enforcement community information is up to date. If there's a need for law enforcement to be looped in to affect arrest or to affect a rescue, then law enforcement, that's their positional authority. So they can call the law enforcement agencies that are on that list, and we've got that up to date as well. So it's been a really great partnership for us.
Nice.
Those are some very strong collaborative partners. Can't go wrong with the human trafficking hotline. They are the ultimate data collectors.
Yeah, we don't mess around.
Yeah.
We just go for the, yeah.
I saw a number on your website. I think it was in reference to maybe the amount of children that you all have rescued within a certain time frame. And I think the number was a little over 500, I think. I saw that number.
So what you probably saw was something that came out from Department of Public Safety.
Okay.
So in 2008, the Department of Public Safety, that's our state troopers, right? Love those guys, all of them, every one of them, even the one who stopped me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. They have been doing what's called the Interdiction for Protection of Children. And they began educating in 2009. Prior to that, they hadn't really done a great deal, and they never kept any statistics on any children that they found or, what that looked like for them. So they put together a curriculum with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who is another primary partner of ours. And DPS has trained thousands of people. And actually, the training has gone international. And they've just redone it so that it can become a national standardized training. And what they have just accomplished in the last 10 years is nothing short of miraculous to get all of these folks trained on the Interdiction for Protection of Children in every traffic stop and encounter that they have. They have tens of thousands of traffic stops across the state of Texas every year. And they now have guidance and training that helps them in that traffic stop within the first 90 seconds, really, to assess what's happening with the kiddos that are in the car. Historically, there was not a whole lot of interaction with those kids. And they just this year have had their 500th rescue of a child who was on either the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's list and or was in a situation where they were being exploited and in the control of someone else who was not authorized to have them. So that's a huge milestone.
Wow.
500 kids rescued
amazing.
Is an amazing, amazing number.
That's really encouraging. Wow.
Yeah.
I'm wowed over
Department of Public Safety's got it going on. We have human trafficking squads that have been authorized by the legislature because they know that this work is challenging, and that they have a core group of folks that are trained intentionally to affect this specific crime. Then we're going to get better results. So the Department of Public Safety has the human trafficking squads. Also, Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission now has people who are working on trafficking cases specifically across the state, and they work with DPS in a lot of those cases. And they can go into bars and clubs that are licensed for alcoholic beverages and do inspections and all kind of things like that. The Department of Professional Regulations has also got teams that are looking for trafficking in those establishments that are licensed. So yeah, the state's really been very proactive. It's what we call hostile territory to traffickers here in Texas.
Mm. Okay. Well, I know this is such an obvious statement, but it's just reinforces the power of education and training and opening your eyes to see what's right in front of you when you might have seen a situation 100 times and never thought outside the box or ever thought why those kids were in that car or engaging the child in a certain way, and just training itself how it can save a life is just, you can't underestimate training in general when it comes to human trafficking.
And it's like looking for a needle in a haystack sometimes, and you don't know what you're looking for. I use the "Where is Waldo" analogy a bit. You don't know how to find Waldo on those collages of pictures until you know what Waldo's wearing and what he looks like. And then everybody else seems to be wearing what he's wearing, those red and white stripes and that kind of stuff. But once you know what Waldo's wearing, once you know what Waldo looks like, once you have an idea in your mind of what you're looking for as you scan the collage, then you can find Waldo. And it's the same in trafficking in some respects. We've got to figure out what the compilation of pictures is showing us for a single individual. And we really have to be cognizant of so much when we're looking at our children's lives. And one of the things that we're really recognizing is just how vulnerable our children are online.
Yes.
The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, I mentioned them earlier, and you can make sure that they get into the show notes, Carrie, is that they have a ton of resources for parents. The lack of protective factors that children have in the online space makes them increasingly vulnerable to those that are looking for children who may be on social media or who may be gaming in the gaming industry. This is a challenge for us, is to know who has access to them and what they have access to as well in the online space. But without protective factors in place, every kid is vulnerable. Right. And it's really hard to recognize those kiddos, except if you know what they're engaging with online. And that becomes a descriptor of their story of how they get exploited and how they get groomed and recruited to participate in sexting or inappropriate pictures. And it can real easily flip to criminal activity by a child that they have no idea, and they may get exploited really easily.
Yeah, we have definitely tried to make a point of how vulnerable the online platform is, and kids and parents, and so that's a great, we'll stick those resources on there and links for parents as well. Thank you for that tip, and I might use that "Where's Waldo" illustration. I'll give you 100% credit, but in some of my trainings, because I just love that. I think it's so true. It's an incredibly perfect picture of your eyes being opened, and when you see it, you and professionally, I can say the same thing. Like, I missed it for most of my career until I knew what I was looking for. And now those kids and those adults and those vulnerable people stick out to me. Like, it's just so obvious. It's I can't ignore it. It cannot be ignored.
Exactly.
Right. Once you know, you can't unknow.
Exactly.
Well, Tomi, we thank you for your time, but before we go, is there something that you want our audience to know? You can lead them, you can tell them about the website or more information.
Sure. I think that there's a role for everyone. The comprehensive holistic response is a public health framework, and it's much like how we're responding to COVID. We've got to teach people and to help them to understand what the challenges are. And at gov.texas.gov/CSTT, which will be in the notes, you can go there and learn a whole lot more. There are opportunities for business owners, businesses against trafficking. There are opportunities for church members, GRACE, which is Governor's Response Against Child Exploitation. Every faith community, it's an interfaith group that the First Lady has brought together to have a strategic response within our congregations, whatever faith that is, to how they can participate in education and working with their own congregants about the issue of trafficking. So it's not a matter of there's no place for me. It's a matter of what do I bring to the table and how can I be of assistance to responding to this.
That's awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Tomi.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, I'm Paula.
And I'm Carrie.
And if you have any questions that you would like to have answered, you can email us at
support@reclaim611.org.
Or you can check out the website at
www.reclaim611.org.
All right. And until next time, guys.
See you later.
Bye-bye.